I think we are officially live. Hey, everyone in attendance. If you can see me, say hi in the chat. I am so excited for this. I just realized last week that I want to spend more time connecting with all the amazing people in the community. As I get older and mature in my life, I come to realize how much that health is about connection. It's about connection to our own personal habits with our nutrition, our exercise. But from an organism perspective, it's also connection with one another. And I now believe more firmly than ever that for us to heal ourselves and the world at large, we just need to be together more. So that's my intention of these live streams. I'm going to be doing so many more of these into the future. So the fact that you tuned in today makes me so happy. I am very, very grateful. And what we're going to do today is go through all the questions we have in the chat. And I also have some really cool topics that I prepared that I'm excited to speak about, and particularly fasting, visceral fat, EMFs, some really important topics. I have a resource document that I'm going to share with you right now. I'm going to open it up at this moment so anyone with the link can view it. And there's going to be some follow-up stuff that you can check out. It is going into the chat right now. It's a Google document. You can hop in there. I'll eventually get into that. And hey, everyone. This is awesome. So I guess I'll kick off with some questions that I see in the chat before I cover some stuff that I'd like to talk about. Jennifer Newton has an awesome question about insights on maintenance for short-term memory loss. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about brain health and memory. I think it's so important for all of us as we get older, as well as if we have aging parents and we're seeing that they have some cognitive decline. So basically, here's the high-level premise. The brain's health depends on the health of the neurons, the brain cells that actually allow the electrical activity to happen, as well as the amount of energy resource available, as well as the amount of damage that's accumulated in the brain through bad lifestyle habits. So what we find is that actually all of this increase in cognitive decline and dementia is often considered to be type 4 diabetes. So people that have dysregulated blood sugars for long periods of time, that sticky blood with all the glucose ends up creating plaques and different kinds of inflammatory proteins in the brain that can be very problematic. So getting your metabolic health in point is massively important. Number two, very practical tip. I'm going to talk about this a lot through the live stream, is creatine monohydrate. That supplement that many of us believe was just for bodybuilders and people that want to build muscle. It may be one of your best protectors of cognitive health and memory improvement, period. And I am now more convinced than ever that most people, and I would almost say almost everybody with very rare exceptions, should be taking 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate every single day. What creatine does is it increases ATP, which is the energy production. Your brain is one of your most energy intensive organs. And so when you give your brain more ATP, your clarity of thinking improves. There is another supplement derived from ginkgo biloba, which is a leaf, a plant that many people have used for thousands of years that helps with blood flow to the brain. The derivative of that is called vinpocetine, Vinpocetine. I take that often. I have a bottle by my desk. Before this live stream, I took some. It increases blood flow to the brain, which can help with memory for sure. What you can also try for short-term memory loss is to get a specific form of magnesium called magnesium L-threonate. That's L-threonate. That's a type of magnesium that can cross the blood-brain barrier. Magnesium is involved in ATP production. So if you pair magnesium with creatine and maybe the vinpocetine, that's a little more of a nuanced supplement, that would be fantastic. Making sure you're getting enough omega-3s. This is often referred to as fish oil. The specific omega-3 you want is DHA, but you do not need to eat fish to get enough omega-3s. My plant-based sources that I love are hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are probably my primary one, but you can also use flax or chia seeds as well. So important for brain health. Sleep and fasting will also help improve your memory as well. So the sleep is key because the brain cleans itself during sleep. So anything we can do to optimize sleep, which we'll talk more about throughout the stream, is going to be great. And fasting is great too, because it gives the body in this deeply catabolic state the chance to basically decrease inflammation and break down any of these buildup byproducts that happen with aging. And then the brain also works on a use it or lose it kind of principles. So it's keeping your mind and your brain very active through projects, spending more time outside and getting connected with sunshine and the proper circadian rhythm is massively important for brain health. And maybe supplement with melatonin as well. Melatonin is the powerful antioxidant of the brain. It decreases with age. And so maybe taking 1 milligram to 3 milligrams of melatonin could be helpful for brain health. So those are some things that I think are relevant to talk about. We have another question from B2, and he says he's a 30-year-old guy wanting to gain weight. What would be the course for beginners? And to go very directly, it would be strength training 2 to 3 times per week, doing like heavy compound movements, either full body training, so full body hitting that 2 to 3 times per week, or splitting it upper body, lower body. The next would be setting your protein target at roughly around, I would say for you, around 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per pound body weight. That's high. Maybe even 0.75 would be fine, but setting that protein target and then eating more, having 3 full meals per day, probably with 1 snack, and measuring your weight, I'd say every single week, maybe every 3-4 days, and making sure that your trend increasing. It's kind of as simple as that. And if you're getting stronger in the gym, you're hitting your protein target, you're eating enough calories, you will start to gain some weight. Richard Open, just want to say hi, brother. I see you in the comments from the UK. It's so fun seeing friends here. I love this. Okay, so we have some tips on getting better sleep after I wake up at 2 a.m. Sleep is like everything when it comes to long-term health. It's our body's full restorative cycle. It is our body's chance to increase growth hormone and heal and regenerate. It is our brain's chance to clean itself. We have an immune system in the brain that cleans itself overnight. And when we don't sleep well, we feel brain fog. And then obviously there's hormonal changes and technology impacts on sleep. I'll give you a couple things off the top of my head that I'm focusing on in my life as it relates to sleep, and maybe you'll find 1 or 2 things that'll be good. One thing I'm very convinced of is if you want to destroy your sleep, eat a lot of food late at night. I am trying to shift the majority of my food intake, almost all of it, earlier in the day. I'm trying to eat before the sun sets, to be honest with you. I know that's not always possible, but I'm giving my body at least 4 hours of time to digest before I go to sleep. And there's some people on YouTube and on the internet who are really pushing the longevity front. One would be Brian Johnson. He's a guy who is doing a lot of biohacking, spending a lot of money. I think he's trying to have his last meal at like 2, 3, or 4 o'clock to get into that really deeply fasted state and not have any food and digestion happening, because he knows it optimizes his sleep and he measures this. 2, there are some simple things you can do in your room to eliminate light in your room. So if you are sleeping with your cell phone or some kind of thing that's either has light or is transmitting non-native EMF, get that away from your bedstand. It is absolutely known. And if you're not on this train yet, go into the document I have here in the chat. It's at the top of this chat, and watch my EMF presentation. It's an hour long. I cite all the research. That stuff will wreck your sleep if it's by your bed long term. So get the phone out. I recently installed blackout curtains underneath my shades. So blackout curtains come down now, and the darker room is really essential. If you're finding that you're getting hot at night, you got to find a way to cool down that bed. So maybe getting one of these cooling things they have for the bed can be very essential. And maybe if you're waking up at 2 a.m., I would also consider taking some melatonin and some of that magnesium L-threonate before you go to bed. Could be very helpful. And if you do wake up consistently at 2 a.m., then I would make sure you're not checking your phone. You maybe work on doing some breathing practices to recalm that nervous system. Like, sleep's fairly complex, but I think these are the sleep hygiene things are probably some of the most important stuff. One thing I do, and I do this different than most people, and I believe it's very beneficial, is I have a meditation and prayer practice every night before I go to bed. I have a chair in my bedroom that I set and I arrange, and I sit in that chair for at least 5 minutes, but it could be up to 20, 30 minutes before I go to bed. And I really do believe that this transition state of our consciousness from active waking state into the transition states of like dreaming and then into deep sleep states are a profound part of our life experience. And by having some kind of prayer meditation practice to help ease that transition in, it's just very healthy. It's healthy because it allows you to process emotions from the day. It's healthy because it allows you to downregulate your nervous system and get into that parasympathetic. And what we're learning is the connection between our mind and our emotions and our genetic expression and the health of our mitochondria is becoming so crystal clear. Like literally our mental emotional state translates into the amount of energy our body produces or does not produce, as well as like stored trauma in the body. Like I'm telling you, this is the case. They've have a lot of research on kids who have early traumatic events, adverse childhood events is what they say in the research, ACEs. And they find that kids with really traumatic ACEs, their mitochondria, the energy producing parts of our cells, are basically semi-dormant. It's like the body completely downregulates itself because it doesn't want to produce energy because it feels like something's not safe in the environment. And this is the same thing with all organisms. If an organism is out in an environment that it perceives to be toxic, it is not going to express itself fully. Like a fungal spore will not bloom and get into full life cycle unless it sees that it has the right conditions. Like our cells are doing the same thing on a deep level. And I'm telling you, your emotions and unprocessed stuff is dynamically interfacing. So my take is at night, this is a chance to have a dedicated practice to allow things to process. What I ask myself is throughout my day, what things did I do that took away from my life energy? What things did I do that were not productive, that were released? It could have been a mean comment to somebody, a judgmental thought, eating the wrong kind of food. And I'm able to reflect on what wasn't great, and not to be punitive, but just to see what I could have done differently, and then set the intention into the next day to do things that add up into life energy. I believe this whole health game really comes down to momentum. It's about momentum. When we're doing exercise, we're eating, we're sleeping, we have positive momentum that builds. And the only way to manage momentum is to have more reflection. And I'm telling you, like, this is not foo-foo. There's this amazing interplay between your genetics and your emotions. So that's some good stuff there. I also sleep with earplugs and a face mask. I think that's relevant as well. Try to get as dark and quiet as possible. We have a question about BMI calculation. Like, and basically, like, is it good? And that's body mass index. That's a ratio of your height to your weight. And it's a way to predict disease. Here's the deal. Like, BMI is helpful on a population level. When people are doing studies, it's really easy to gather people's height and weight and then make wide epidemiologic and population level claims about how BMI is correlated with certain kinds of things. But for every individual who is exercising and has higher muscle mass, BMI is not a relevant metric. I don't know my BMI. I know what a healthy weight is for me to naturally maintain, but BMI is just kind of like trash on an individual level if you have muscle and you are absolutely healthy. Now, what I do want to dive into in this nice transition is I want to talk about visceral fat. I want you to understand visceral fat, what this is and why it's important. I'll tell you a metric that is very valuable is waist circumference. So if you do want to measure something on yourself, measure the circumference of your waist right around your belly button. That is going to be very, very, very correlated, to the amount of visceral fat, the deep fat that surrounds your organs. And that deep fat is what is going to promote pretty much all the disease in your body. And we need to get rid of that. Plus, if you are paying attention to your abdominal circumference, it's also going to give you an indication of the amount of bloating you're having on a regular basis. And I'll tell you this, if right now you are having bloating on a regular basis, you are eating some kind of food, or if there's something in your environment that is not agreeing with your system, and you need to discover what that is to have optimal health. If you're having consistent bloating, there is something in your system that is not working, and you want to feel light and lean in your GI tract the majority of the time. Easier said than done, but it is my guiding metric right now in my nutrition. I am eating foods that help my GI tract feel lean and not bloated, which means for me personally, I have deviated away or gotten away from having as many complex carbohydrates. So rice, for example, although healthy for some people, does cause me bloating if I eat it too frequently. So I'm not including that as much in perfect plates. I'm doing more potatoes, sweet potatoes, I should say specifically. Fruit does not bloat me as much as if I had even certain kinds of wheat. Even Ezekiel bread bloats me a little bit. If it's fine for you, that's cool. A type of wheat that I've moved to that I like a lot is einkorn, EINKORN. It's the most ancient wheat we know. It has the most traditional genetics. I eat that. My stomach feels very lean and clean. And this is where nutrition is so bio-individual. You need to identify the foods that bloat you and get those out of your diet or have them on rare occasion. Now, visceral fat. let's get into this. Basically, this is the fat that surrounds your organs. It's like the fat you can almost press on, but you can't pinch. And what's so fascinating about this is it's auto-inflammatory. Like visceral fat literally releases chemicals that create more inflammation. And then it kind of leads to more visceral fat accumulation and then more inflammation. And the inflammation is so deep. It's wrapping around your organs, your pancreas, your intestines. Those visceral fat releases fatty acids that go into your liver and clog up your liver, leading to fatty liver disease. And when your liver's not functioning well, your blood glucose goes off. Your pancreas has to work harder. You become more insulin resistant. We got to get rid of visceral fat. And there's actually some people who like look lean-ish. You know, they feel like I have a good body fat range. I maybe like 15 to 20, but they actually have a decent amount of visceral fat. And so one way to measure that is to get a DEXA scan. It's a scan they can do where they can actually show you the amount of fat distribution on your body, where that is. And that's cool. And I think that's valuable. You can do that. But you can also just measure your waist circumference over time and see that go down. That's another way to kind of do it. Here's the things that actually work for reducing visceral fat. The first thing is high intensity interval training. HIIT, like doing that at least once per week, but ideally 3 times per week is great. There's a reason why on our Fit Father and Fit Mother YouTube channels and our programs, we recommend HIIT workouts as well as metabolic resistance training, which is basically strength training workouts that do all the good strength training motions in a circuit fashion. So basically HIIT workouts with weights. That uniquely burns visceral fat. And what's so amazing about it is it doesn't actually burn fat while you're training. It's actually typically burning carbohydrates because it's higher intensity. But at rest, your body just tends to release from the visceral fat stores uniquely. The next thing that works for visceral fat really well is prolonged fasting. So like, I'm not talking about, oh, I skip breakfast every day and that's like my intermittent fasting. I'm talking about at least 24 hours, maybe up to 72-hour plus fasts. These uniquely reduce the inflammatory markers in the body and have the body pull deeply from the visceral fat stores. That's why in an ideal world, I would say you build up your fasting tolerance. You start doing a 24-hour or 36-hour fast once a week. And then at least maybe once a quarter, you start to do a 3-day fast. Not only is it good for reducing visceral fat, it breaks down all those damaged proteins, helps your cognitive health, raises your growth hormone levels, reestablishes your relationship to food. And it's not easy per se, but it's very healing. This year, I have done 1 3-day fast and 1 5-day fast. And I am so grateful that I did. I always feel better, lighter, and leaner after these. On those prolonged fasts, I have a full video on my protocol on how to do it. It's in the resource notes document. Hopefully someone from my team in the chat can pop that down and you can, so it's there. Watch that full video. It's like 20 minutes. I tell you exactly how I like to do it. I like to do light strength training on those fasting days, maybe like 10, 15 minutes, just because it's good for the body. But it's a time that you should actually be restful. It's also a time that you can do a caffeine break. So it's like the thing that no one wants to talk about, but basically all of us are kind of addicted to caffeine, or most of us are. And I'm not saying like caffeine or coffee is bad by any means, but it has to be kept in check. And many of us have nervous systems that are so tied to like needing caffeine to function well. And that unfortunately keeps the body in a sympathetic state, a activated state with higher heart rate, higher blood pressure. It gives us energy and motivation to go do things, but it does not allow the body to be at rest. To live a long time, you want your body to be in the parasympathetic nervous system 95% of the time, and then to activate into sympathetic. But unfortunately with caffeine, it kind of keeps you in a low-grade sympathetic state for the 6 hours or so when caffeine is very active in the system. So I'm a big advocate of doing caffeine breaks. And if you know that your system is at a point where you need caffeine to function, then work on scaling it back. One thing that works really well for that is cold plunging. I straight up, like, cold exposure releases all of the same chemicals that caffeine does. Adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine. It's just done naturally. And so what I find is that the more I do cold exposure, the less caffeine I feel like I need. And for me, I no longer am on caffeine on a daily basis. That's just for me. You may still do that, but I'm just telling you, like, taking caffeine breaks is really good for your health. And if you can get to the point where you use it more episodically versus like all the time, that would be good for your health. And fasting is a good reason to do a caffeine break. One thing that's helpful as you're doing a caffeine withdrawal is to take a supplement called rhodiola, RHODIOLA. It is an herb that you can get in tincture format, and it helps basically your body process caffeine withdrawals if you're going through that. So I like that. We have a question from Mike M. He says, Dr. A, what do you think about doing Apex 10 2 times a week and Manflow Yoga 5 times a week with walking elliptical? 100% perfect. Like, I think Dean actually from Manflow might have to be in the chat, or someone from his team. It is like one of the best things you can do as you get older is prioritize exercise that is joint friendly and improves your range of motion. Manflow Yoga is as good as possible on that. The benefit of the Fit Father and Fit Mother workouts with the higher intensity with Apex 10 is it activates all these genes. It gives you that high intensity pulse. And not to say Manflow is not high intensity. Some workouts certainly are, but that's a perfect combination of getting proper restoration with the pulse. And look, walking is just what humans are born to do. We are born to walk. The more steps you can accumulate, the better. And if you have the ability to walk outside, that is one of the best things possible for regulating nervous system. And here's what we're going to find over the next 10 years or so, you're going to see an explosion of research that's going to be all about circadian biology. Basically how all of our genes, a lot of our important genes, are triggered by our contact with sunlight on our skin and sunlight on our eyes. And this is like, we look back in history and we're like, I can't believe humans believed that and did that. We are going to have a moment like that with the sun. And the sun is interesting because we have this kind of predominant thing that people are like, the sun causes skin cancer. It's damaging. It ages the skin. And part of that is true, but it's also massively beneficial. And you want to actually work seasonally with the sun depending on where you live. So we're getting into the summer. If you're not outside building up some degree of base layer tan right now with 10 to 20 minutes, you are doing yourself a massive disservice. This is the time, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, where we're meant to actually get our melanin in our skin exposed to the sun to build up that base layer tan. If we're eating the right kinds of foods and we're getting enough good nutrients, our skin actually becomes more resistant to burning. And if we get morning sunshine, which has a lot of infrared and not a lot of UV, it buffers our skin up for the rest of the day and helps us. Now, I'm not saying go outside and get burned in the middle of the day. Like, sure, use sunscreen, all that stuff during the middle of the day. But if you can get early morning sunshine, your health will benefit. Your mitochondria will benefit. Your brain releases more serotonin. You make more melatonin at night. It's so helpful. And there's actually a really cool combination of this cold exposure with the sun that basically supercharges your mitochondria. So I just want to say more sunshine, get outside, start to build your base tan. It's really helpful. Scrolling through, I will, Sassy, you have a question about the creatine. So creatine, there's a bunch of, I think I have some study links up in the document, and taking melatonin does not suppress your own melatonin production. That's a misnomer. And I talked to this guy, Dr. Jeffrey Gladden. He's one of the foremost longevity experts. And I really grilled him on this. I directly asked him, is that the case? And it is not. Melatonin is such an important hormone that it's not one of these hormones that we take exogenously, that it decreases our own production. He takes 1 to 3 milligrams of melatonin every single day. There's melatonin found in certain kinds of foods, like cherries have it. I think walnuts have some melatonin as well. So you can take that. You don't need to take it every night. But what I find is if I'm working late on a computer, I get more light exposure, et cetera. Another thing, and I'll say this often, I'll say this right now. If you right now do not have whatever night shift mode on your phone installed right now in settings, which is generally like in your phone or your computer, general accessibility, brightness, display, however you go there that makes your screen more orange, do that for your phone, do that for your kid's phone. The second the sun is down, get that on. Because if you don't do that, you're literally poisoning yourself with non-native light that suppresses your melatonin production. We have an Apple TV at my house, and my daughter sometimes likes to watch shows at night. And I go into the settings on the Apple TV, and I turn on light sensitivity settings, so it makes it more orange, and I protect her melatonin production. So that's phenomenal. So Matt Coleman asks, what happens when you are in a calorie deficit? Does it affect muscle growth? Yes, it does slow down muscle growth. Our bodies like to be in calorie surplus for muscle building, but that's not to say that you can't build muscle in a calorie deficit. It's just going to be slower. What you're going to need, though, is a very high protein intake. And there's a particular amino acid called leucine that I keep leucine powder in the house that I throw into a protein shake on occasion. If you use our superfuel proteins, they are very rich in leucine, and that's one of the triggers of muscle protein synthesis. So this is why I'm a believer of having one predominant goal in your plan. If your goal right now is to build muscle, it's good to be at an ideal body fat level so you can eat more calories. You're not worried about, putting on some fat. So I say get lean first. It makes you more insulin sensitive, gets you ready to build some muscle, and then have periods where you actually cut, where you get rid of that body fat. And so for you right now, I would say it's probably better for you to eat in calorie deficit for some time and to do some strength training. That's really good. So really cool question here. My thoughts on statins and how it relates to weight loss. I don't know if there's a direct mechanism on why statins would prevent weight loss. I am kind of anti-statin, or at least anti how they're thrown out like Pez candy in most doctors' offices. And so for those who are not familiar, statins are drugs that are prescribed. They're like a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. They block cholesterol production in the body. You take a statin, it will lower cholesterol 20 to 30%. And the problem is our body does need cholesterol production. It's the backbone of estrogen and testosterone. Cholesterol stabilizes our cell membranes. Taking statins can damage the muscles over time. It could lead to some brain health problems as well, liver health problems. But a low-dose statin, if you have certain genetic risk factors or if you have high type of specific cholesterol called ApoB, could be very helpful and protect you from some risk. So I'm not saying absolutely don't take them. I am saying that the best course for improving your cholesterol levels is first cleaning up your diet, second, trying some fasting, third, doing strength training, fourth, taking vitamin D and omega-3s, and fifth, taking a specific form of vitamin E called tocotrienols. Tocotrienols. I interviewed the world's foremost expert on that, Dr. Barry Ton, and not only are tocotrienols work as effectively as statins for many people, they're massively healthy and give you other health benefits. So there's just other ways to do it. It's kind of just something that we're doing because it's in the modern medical system. And I also want to say, like, let's talk about cholesterol for a second. Like the regular blood test that you're probably getting from your primary care physician that gives you just total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, VLDL, does not tell enough of the picture. We need to do more advanced cholesterol testing to really know. What you want to know is actually get your ApoB levels. That's ApoB. That's the blood marker that's looking at a specific type of LDL cholesterol that has high risk with an association with many diseases. And ApoB is the type of cholesterol that can actually be oxidized. And that's a cholesterol that's actually very damaging. So just because you have higher cholesterol levels does not necessarily mean you have higher cardiovascular risk if your ApoB is in check. There is also another cardiovascular marker called LPA, and it's LP little a. It's like LP bracket A. If you have that in your family, it's something that you will have or you won't have. You are at higher risk of cardiovascular disease, so you might want to take your cholesterol levels a little more seriously. So I guess like this more nuanced cholesterol testing is good. And there's also other things like where you can look at particle size of the cholesterol and not just total amount. So the basic cholesterol testing is just not sufficient in my opinion. That's something to look at. Something else like I'm getting more into, and I'm by no means an expert, but I'm going to put this on your radar, is like the interface between our own figuring out our own genetic sequencing and how that influences the kind of diets and supplements that we want to get onto. There are some very common gene variants, and you might hear the people call these SNPs, SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. It's basically like you and I are humans, so we have like the same basic genes, but you have a variant and I have a variant, and it's slightly different. And what genes do is they basically provide the blueprint for our body to make proteins and enzymes. And if you have a gene that codes for a specific enzyme involved in energy production per se, like let's say there's a gene involved in the production of dopamine, and you have some kind of SNP that makes it so you don't make a very good version of that enzyme, you might have different nutritional needs than me. So we can actually get this sequenced through a company, sequencing.com. It takes like many months to get it back. I'm going to initiate this process, and that will tell you what kind of genes that you do have and then what changes you might want to make. One of the most common genetic variants out there that causes a lot of problems for people is called MTHFR. MTHFR. And basically, this is an enzyme, a gene that codes for an enzyme that adds these things called methyl groups to our DNA. And it's estimated that around 25% of people may have a genetic deficiency with MTHFR. So literally based on this chat, there might be like 25 to 50 of you who have an MTHFR variant, which means that your body is not methylating properly. And I don't want to go into the deep biochemistry of what that means, but what it will translate to is you have lower energy production. You could have ADHD, you could have low-grade anxiety, you could have digestive difficulties. And the solution would be, because based on your genetics, you may need to take methylated B vitamins, special kinds of B vitamins that have methyl groups for this. And it's like, you're welcome, Jennifer. She said, thanks for speaking to this. It's actually just so essential. We have like kids that have autism and issues. There's many causes of that, and I could go deep on that. There's such a high association with those kids having MTHFR issues. So if you have kids or grandkids or yourself, you've had longstanding anxiety, mental, emotional problems, taking a methylated B vitamin supplement could be like so corrective for you on a deep level that like nothing else would. And in fact, when your body gets the proper inputs with methyl groups, everything else starts to normalize. So I'm going to be testing for my MTHFR. There's like a sequencing.com I mentioned actually does test for that, but it's a 4-month turnaround. There's a like $100 test on Amazon you can get that also tests it. It'll be like a little cheek swab, and then you can see if you have MTHFR. Speaking of B vitamins, like many people know that like vitamins are good. Like I should get vitamins, but what do they actually do? Well, B vitamins are the things that are the cofactors in energy production. We were talking previously about brain health and how the brain needs a lot of energy as we age to have good cognitive function, and creatine is good for that. Well, the B vitamins are all the cofactors that lead to energy production. And here's something cool that I'm doing. I am starting to take using nutritional yeast. I know it sounds weird, but like non-fortified nutritional yeast. The kind that I get is from Dr. Berg, D-R-B-E-R-G. He's a YouTuber, but he's got a great supplement line on Amazon. I buy Dr. Berg's nutritional yeast, the non-fortified version, which means no synthetic B vitamins. And I put that on my salads. I put that on in my daughter's mac and cheese. Like I put that everywhere, 1 or 2 tablespoons a day. It is the richest source of natural B vitamins that you can possibly have. And I think it's just kind of like a sneaky hack that I have in my diet. I'm always sneaking nutritional yeast into things. Also, if you take our super fuel protein powders, we have B vitamins in there as well, and the good forms of many of those, because we want you to be stocked up without needing to think about it. But the B vitamins are important. That's something that I think is really good. Dan asks, are there supplements that aren't high in potassium? I have congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and I keep potassium and sodium levels in check. Yeah, I'd say like, I mean, it just depends on the type of supplement. Like not all supplements have potassium in them. I guess I would be happy to evaluate a specific supplement if you're looking at. You can send it to me and my team, Dan, and we can get back to you on looking at that specifically. But this does bring up like minerals, and I think we can kind of like guide into talking about minerals. Minerals are so overlooked, and I like to think about the things that I do based on having done this for many decades that many people don't do. And I take my mineral game way more seriously than probably 99.9% of the planet. And here's specifically what I do. Morning, many of us in our programs community know that we want to wake up and rehydrate, and we rehydrate and we often add some pink Himalayan salt, which might be even better than that is some Celtic sea salt, some really high quality Celtic sea salt. It has all these minerals, like getting that in your morning water. But the next level of this is, and this is a supplement that we don't make, but I do take on a daily basis. It's from Beam Minerals, BEAM Minerals. It's fulvic and humic acids, FULVIC and HUMIC acids. These are complexes of minerals from the breakdown of plant products that basically give your body all these trace minerals you need. And ultimately, when we come down to this, like our bodies run on biophysics, like all these things we're talking about, vitamins, minerals, whatever, it comes down to like electrical potential across cell membranes. And that's how our body carries out all these functions. Like all the enzymes we're talking about have certain charges to them, and minerals help our bodies create voltage differentials and move electrons. And so that's why we need to have proper electrolytes and minerals. And so if you are not taking your mineral game seriously, do that. And I'm not a fan necessarily of just like the mainstream mineral supplements, like LMNT, Element is like a common brand that people are doing all over the place. Listen, I'm not going to like knock on that. Like it's not a terrible supplement, but it's just basically sodium. It's like 1,000 milligrams of sodium. In my opinion, that's like way too much unless you're sweating a ton. I actually want you to get the micro minerals, the trace minerals that you're missing out on. You're probably not getting enough iodine. You're probably not getting enough boron, enough vanadium, these small things that you need to get. And they're in those fulvic and humic acids. They're also in Celtic sea salt. We have a good question on, would not HIIT create more cortisol in the body and that make the body hold on to fat and a different kind of fat? It's a great question. Like exercise is stress on the body, and exercise acutely will raise cortisol levels. So we're always looking at the whole tapestry of our readiness in our body, and we should tailor the kind of workout to do. So if you're waking up and you're feeling under recovered, you're feeling fatigued, you have low motivation to exercise, your morning heart rate is higher, if you have some kind of tracker or ring and you're looking at your heart rate variability or your readiness score, which is typically an aggregation of your heart rate and your HRV, and it says that your body needs more rest and recovery, one of the worst things you could do is go do a HIIT workout and then put your nervous system more into inroad. But if you are well regulated and you're sleeping well, and then in that case, the transient rise in cortisol from high intensity interval training won't matter at all and will be beneficial. And if you eat after training, particularly getting the proteins and maybe some carbohydrates, it actually lowers the cortisol levels. So I actually would say, like, I wouldn't be worried about the cortisol levels from training as much as I would the cortisol levels from chronic caffeine intake paired with lots of life stress, paired with undersleeping and under recovery. So all things that work in the body, even vitamins, are hormetic stressors. They stress us in small doses and our body responds. Rory asked, what's my view on normal fizzy water? See if it bloats you. I think it's okay to have fizzy water. I would be wary of having anything that has too many sweeteners in it. Like stevia is interesting. I think it's okay in certain dose. I know if I take too many stevia drinks, I get a little bit of bloated. But if you can drink fizzy water and it doesn't bloat you, fine. All these things that say they have natural flavors in them, that could mean a million things. Some natural flavors are way worse than others, but they don't have to disclose what those actually are. So if you get like a very clean brand that advertises like they're really healthy and naturally flavored, and it doesn't have erythritol, that is certainly a sweetener that I'm looking to avoid these days. It has a lot of associations now we're seeing with cardiovascular issues and stuff like that. I don't stay away. I stay away from that. I do drink mineral water and sparkling water like when I can, but I'd say, like Rory, if fizzy water, you drink it, you don't feel bloated, fine. I would also probably do it on an empty stomach as well. I think that drinking a lot of carbonated things after eating a meal can be problematic. Okay, so Jim asked a question, when you say sun on your eyes, can I wear sunglasses or will that negate the effects? So it's a good idea to wear sunglasses to avoid direct sunlight, especially midday. But in the morning, if you can get out and get sunshine exposure in your eyes in the first couple hours of the day, let's say between sunrise and the next 3-4 hours, I would do no sunglasses. And in fact, I wear contact lenses, but these are like UV blocking contact lenses. I want UV in my eyes in the morning. UV is the stuff that actually stimulates vitamin D production. It stimulates serotonin synthesis. So I wear my glasses in the morning to make sure that I get some natural exposure before I put sunglasses on. But midday, you want to have sunglasses on. That's really good. Yeah, so there was someone that said some stuff for sleep, taking GABA and taping the mouth, really good. So on the sleep front, like, we want to be nose breathers, and many of us are actually sleeping in bad positions. That's preventing us from actually getting proper restful sleep. And sleep apnea is the process where our brain is not getting enough oxygen throughout the night. So it wakes us up in these micro wake ups, and we never actually get a complete sleep cycle. Here's what I find, and this is just a hack that you can play around with: changing the type of pillow that you use. I'm going to turn to the side here so you can kind of see. At night, the neck is meant to be in a degree of cervical extension. So the pillow that I have is like a cervical neck pillow. It's what's it called? If I think of the name, I'll tell you. But like, it goes underneath your neck and keeps the neck in extension. I know when my head is slightly back like this, it opens up my airway. When I'm on a regular pillow that kind of brings my chin forward like this, I know that when I take a breath, I can hear and feel the airway resistance, and I don't get complete breathing. So what I'm literally telling you is you probably can make an immediate change to the posture that you sleep in that will open up your airway, encourage nose breathing, stop any kind of wake ups and apnea. And like, everyone's got a different ideal sleeping position, but for most people, it's using a smaller, thinner pillow that's primarily under your neck that keeps you in slight extension and allows you to breathe through your nose. And another thing, if you're the type of person that has a nose that is constantly plugged up, it could be seasonal allergies, but it also could be a food allergy. You got to get to the root of getting the mucus out of your system so you can actually properly breathe. And I'll tell you this, if there's a constant mucus in your nasorespiratory passage, there's also likely mucus throughout your whole GI tract too, because this whole system is completely interconnected, and we want to get to the bottom of this. Some things for seasonal allergies that are effective in terms of supplements: vitamin C, quercetin, stinging nettle leaf. All of that is very good. They stabilize the cells that produce histamine. And you can also look at foods that are high or low in histamine. You can find a list of foods that are high and low and try to eliminate some histamine foods. Again, based on the genetics, I talked about that MTHFR. there are certain people that have a gene that codes for, I think it's called diamine oxidase, DAO. It's an enzyme that breaks down histamine. Certain people just have genetics that don't break that down well, so they need to make modifications for that. So just want to bring that to your attention. These genetic things are important. And the other thing that's cool too is for all seasonal stuff that goes around, whether it's like a coronavirus type stuff or whatever it is, quercetin is a great thing to have because it's anti-inflammatory and good for the respiratory tract. Like the stack, I guess, if you will, of natural stuff for like any kind of coronavirus, rhinovirus, seasonal stuff is like zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, quercetin, and acetylcysteine. Like just good catch-all, take that all the time. So those are supplements I keep around, but I don't, take necessarily all the time. Scrolling through for some more stuff. So Greg asks, I'm having trouble scheduling cardio with weight training because I would like to do HIIT and steady state cardio 4 times a week. Any ideas? Yes. I'd say prioritize the HIIT over the steady state. Like you're just going to get more bang for your buck by working your heart and getting that like vigorous thing. And so I'd say the steady state is what's going to take the most time and probably give you the least bang for your buck relative to the benefits of HIIT. And I would say at minimum, try to get 2 strength training days a week. And if you can't get that many days of strength training in a week, train your whole body in each session. Like it's good to just get the full pulse. So instead of just doing a upper body day, you might do full body twice a week with 1 HIIT in the middle. And you could also pair a little bit of HIIT after your a little bit of steady state after your strength training. That's great. You could also spread your steady state out from trying to accumulate walks throughout the day in micro workout style. That could be a really good idea. Amy mentioned a couple other things that are really great. Extra virgin olive oil and red wine vinegar. So I am a big believer that there's just a couple things that are good for basically everybody. A tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil throughout your day would benefit your health phenomenally. It has these things called polyphenols in them. Pretty much all the longest living cultures around the planet have diets rich in polyphenols. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the best things. When I look at buying extra virgin olive oil, I look at a few things. I look that it's sourced from one single country. When you see these things called global blends, and it's typically like it comes from Greece and Spain and Italy and California, they're getting like the crap bottom of the barrel type olive oil and they're kind of aggregating. It's the cheap stuff. You want a single source. California makes good olive oil in the United States. Spain has good olive oil. Like Italy has good olive oil. Greece has good olive oil, but single country source. I like to spend up and buy out a glass bottle versus plastic, but that might be secondary. And a good olive oil that has that it should be a little spicy. The spiciness that you taste is actually the polyphenols that are good for you. You can do this on a salad. So a concept is whatever side salad or greens you have, you could throw some nutritional yeast, the non-fortified, some hemp seeds, olive oil, lemon, like a simple like arugula, lemon, olive oil salad is like wonderful. It takes 2 seconds to make is good. But sometimes I even just take a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil straight down. That's great. I'm also a big believer in apple cider vinegar, but red wine vinegar can also be good. It helps control glucose levels, so that's really solid. Okay, Muhammad asks, what about taking some curd? So this will kind of bring up dairy in general. There are some of you on this chat where dairy is not a good food for you. And you will know this if you eat dairy and you feel like you have mucus production, you will feel like you have gas and bloating, and you just don't feel great afterwards. I fall in that camp. It is unfortunate. I try all different types of dairy. It just does not work for me. Now, everyone thinks like dairy intolerance is lactose intolerance. That's not the picture. Lactose is the type of sugar that is in dairy. It's a unique sugar in dairy. And if you do not have the lactase enzyme, which is due to a genetic deficiency, then you can't break down the milk sugar and you'll have bloating. What actually is the thing I'm talking about is an allergy to the milk proteins, which is casein and whey. And this is where you're going to get the mucus production or not feel great. You might try different kinds of cheeses. Sheep's and goat's cheese have a different kind of casein than cow's cheese and maybe more tolerable. There are a lot of people who swear by raw cheese when the proteins are not denatured. It's more beneficial for some people. The way I take it is like when I make homemade pesto or do a little pasta, I'll get some pecorino romano, which is like a sheep's version of cheese, and I'll put that on there a little bit, and that's totally fine. There are some of you on this chat that dairy is a phenomenally healthy food for you. If you can tolerate dairy, dang, get it into your diet. Like it is rich in protein and minerals and calcium. If you get the raw kinds of dairy, it has immunoglobulins. It has high satiety. It's easy to transport and take. The best kind of dairy, if you can get it, would be kefir, which is an ancient formulation of certain probiotic strains in dairy. It would be wonderful. Curd could be totally fine too. I mean, it's economic. You get good protein in there as well. And what I find is like typically people who are in like the Northern European descent can tolerate dairy better than people who are in the Mediterranean, African, or Asian descent. So play around with it and feel around. If dairy is good for you, good. Curd is totally fine as well. Can you just eat more olives? The answer is yes. I almost always have olives in my fridge. They're freshest if they have the pits in them. I'm going to totally butcher the names of what they're called, but I think it's like Castelvetranos or Francestranos. Like those are the kinds that I'm eating a lot of these days, but really, really solid. David Kuntz, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Benefits of C60. C60 is a unique supplement that is a bunch of carbons together. It's shaped like a spherical ball, and it works as an antioxidant in the body. We've done podcasts with companies that manufacture C60, and all the companies that do say it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It increases longevity and energy and reduces inflammation. And some people swear by that. I took C60 consistently for about 3 months, and I experienced no noticeable benefit. That's not to say that there wasn't benefit happening, but also like I'm super dialed in. Like, was adding another antioxidant into my body and my routine going to move the needle for me? Probably not. But if someone's eating not the right way, they haven't figured out their body, they don't have good routines, and taking C60 could be beneficial. It's pretty expensive. But if you believe in it, I don't think there's harm in taking it necessarily. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about fruit, and I want to talk about eating seasonally. I think it's important. Like, I think we're in such a global society where we have the ability to just get things from anywhere. We can get like any kind of fruit from any country all over the time. But I actually think it's a natural experience for the human body to be in connection with the environment that we're in. And when things come in seasonally, those are typically the healthiest, freshest foods. And so now that we're going into the summer, I am eating more melon. I am eating more cherries. I am eating less of the stone fruits. And so, like, play with that rhythm. You're going to feel more connected to the different season, and it's just like generally good. And also, like, and this is thing I don't have like research to give you on this, but I think we're going to find with those clock genes that during times when we're having certain sun patterns where the sun is like in the summertime and it's very bright, it's leading to the production of things like the watermelons, that our bodies actually tolerate those exact foods that are available in our environment better than they do in the wintertime. So I'm telling you, I think there's a seasonal variety to the types of foods we eat, and it's connected to the feedback we're getting from the sunlight. So take that for what it's worth. Avocado oil is a great oil to fry in. So cherries give you so much gas. Dodge those things, right? That means that your gut microbiome is not working with cherries. They're not a good fruit for you. And like, not all fruits work for me. Like, I feel bad when I eat oranges. I feel bad when I eat grapefruits, like whatever. Like, I figured it out. That's why we can't just say a certain food is healthy for us or not, but just start to pay attention more. Avocado oil, keep that in your fridge. I am using the following stuff for cooking. Avocado oil, I fry eggs when I do in butter or ghee, but avocado oil would also work. I use olive oil and extra virgin olive oil as toppings, and like that gets me around most of the things. I believe that almost everybody's health, unless you have an allergy, would benefit from eating one avocado a day. And people eat avocados at the wrong time. And what I mean, not like the wrong time of the day, but people allow their avocados to get too mushy. Like, in my opinion, the right time to eat an avocado is before it has any black or mottling on it, which means you got to time this thing. You got to buy them when they're hard at the grocery store, and then you got to wait until they're ready, but they're still firm. When you open up that avocado and it doesn't have any of the black decay, it's there. Oh my gosh, it is filled with so many vitamins, healthy fats, keeps you full. It has special compounds, like one's called avocatin B, that actually helps increase your genes that lead to fat burning. It keeps you, like, you can add it to any meal. It regulates your blood sugar better. I like to put salt on it. So like Celtic sea salt, avocado, killer, so good. And this also brings me to understanding the life cycle of all different foods. Like, you want to eat things when that's at the peak of the life cycle before it goes into the decay cycle. You see me here on the channels and videos and programs talking about green tip bananas. We're trying to catch those bananas before they go into the modeling sugar production death decay cycle. Like that's what all happens in nature. Things grow up, they reach a peak, and then they decline. Avocados are the same way. So try to eat them, at a time when they're not getting into the decay cycle, and you'll do better on that. Looking through some more on the chat. Yeah, talking about weight loss plateaus, we have some people talking about that they've lost a lot of weight and they're feeling like they're hitting a weight loss plateau. Again, I think look at your exercise. Can you get more high intensity exercise in? 2, start doing more intermittent calorie restriction. So try doing, the fasting for 24, 36 hours. Seems like the body sometimes gets a little resistant to continuous calorie restriction, and the intermittent restriction helps quite a bit. 3, change up your workout routine. 4, consider taking a diet break, which means just like actually eating at maintenance for some time and working on building some muscle. Because oftentimes when we're losing a lot of weight and we haven't focused enough on strength training and building muscle, we've lost a lot of the fat, but we don't have the metabolic engine from the muscle to support like further fat loss. So taking a little diet break, focusing on building some muscle can reinvigorate your motivation, and muscle burns more fat at rest. So that's really, really solid. Yeah, so those are some things. We have a lot of videos on how to break through weight loss plateaus. And so we can probably send some links to you as well on that. We're getting close to the hour mark. And I guess like I could probably go on for a long time. If you found this beneficial, like drop in chat, like give me some helpful feedback, because I'm going to be dialing in and doing a lot more of these. So I'd love some positive feedback if this is helpful. If you have more questions that I didn't cover and missed in the chat, then please feel free to like put those in and I can catch those. And I'll share a couple more things in closing, and we'll keep this one to about an hour. My intention is to do this like more though, maybe even once a week, once every 2 weeks, because I just have fun. Okay. Steady Ghost, you had a question on what's the new skinny on metformin. And I'll also let me talk about metformin and Ozempic. Does that sound cool? So metformin is an oral anti-diabetic drug. So it helps increase insulin sensitivity, regulate blood sugars. And it's helpful for people with diabetes. It is not helpful for healthy people. In fact, it may actually negate some of the beneficial effects of exercise. And so I think if you actually are prescribed metformin by a doctor because you have poor glucose regulation, that's fine. Here's something that's cool. In prep for this video and looking at visceral fat, there is a natural supplement called Berberine, Berberine, that works similarly to metformin without a bunch of the side effects. You could take that as a healthy person, 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day to get some of the benefits. There were some people in the longevity space that were saying metformin would be good for longevity, but that's not the prevailing wisdom on that. Ozempic. Let me share something cool, just like a personal tidbit. When I was doing my undergraduate work at the University of Pennsylvania, I worked in an endocrinology lab, Harvey Grill's lab, and we actually were doing some of the primary research on the original GLP-1 agonists that became Ozempic. The original drug was called exenatide. So I spent a bunch of years in undergrad giving mice and rats the equivalent of Ozempic and measuring their metabolic parameters. So it was so funny for me when it all came like full circle to see this coming out. So these GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic are going to decrease your hunger. They increase your satiety. They change some of your gut motility patterns, and they can lead to weight loss. But they're also going to come around with some long-term side effects. They're going to come around with people not eating enough food and having nutrient deficiencies as a result of taking Ozempic. I think like anything that we're taking external to rely on to correct our metabolism is going to be a mental crutch that we're going to have problems on. There can be gas, bloating, GI side effects that are there. And also you're not building any real sustainable habits to keep that weight off long-term. You're just relying on taking a drug that is influencing your hunger patterns. So when you get off that, or if you ever choose to, you haven't actually corrected things on a more fundamental level. So I think there's use cases for it. I think if you're very overweight or you've been struggling, I think it'd be okay to try it, but I'm not a huge fan personally. Carnivore. Let's talk about Carnivore for like two or 3 minutes, and I'll probably go a lot deeper on that in a full. I have a video on it that I linked into the resource doc, and again, I'll link that resource doc in here one more time for you, so you can see it. I think Carnivore is a short-term corrective diet. I think it's basically an elimination diet that gets rid of all the carbs and the sugar. It prioritizes on nutrient-rich animal meats. And I think long-term, it can be problematic for some people in terms of shifts to the gut microbiome. It can actually cause some mineral changes as the body becomes slightly more acidic. And I think you miss out on a lot of good plant-based foods that your body would probably tolerate well. And I am a believer in fiber. Like, I'm not on this anti-fiber camp that fiber is bad. I am kind of like pro-fiber because it gives you more gut microbiome diversity. And a lot of this fiber also comes around with the good phytonutrients. So I think what carnivore does teach you is that you want to eat really nutrient-dense animal foods, that quality of your foods matter, that it's probably beneficial to have eggs in your diet, that grass-fed, grass-finished beef is like going to be better than the corn-fed stuff. But I'll tell you this, like, we are living in a toxic world right now. And what that means is that, like, all creatures, humans included, they're high on the food chain. We're bioaccumulators. So the more cow you're eating, the more fish you're eating, like, you're accumulating a whole bunch of crap. Like, and so the sourcing matters the more animal products you have in your diet. So we're going to go fish. We're learning about microplastics and nanoplastics. We're learning about PFAS, which are these forever chemicals that are in our freshwater fish. These things are super toxic. And like, you're getting exposed to those when you actually are eating higher up in the food chain. So that just needs to be aware. I think eggs are a super safe food for most people, especially if you get like a good quality pasture raised egg. So that's something to consider, to get like good animal protein bioavailable, good choline from the yolk. That's to be considered. But try carnivores for some time. If you're early in your health journey, like, try these things out, see how your body responds. So I think I'll share that. And a couple other things, kind of like announcements towards the end of this. One is later this year, we are going to be making one of the most significant updates to our Fit Father and Fit Mother programs we've ever done. I won't give you all the details now. What I'm realizing is that on this health journey, the reason we're all hanging out here on this live stream is, one, because we want to learn for sure, but two, because it feels really good to do health together. And so we're leaning even deeper into community. We are completely overhauling all of our exercise routines for Fit Father and Fit Mother. And we're going to be laying them out on a new weekly workout schedule where the whole community will get workouts to do every single week, and we get to do them together. Like, it's going to be insanely cool. Like, we all get to do workouts together, keep each other accountable. It's all going to be inside our app. I am filming these right now, creating them. And like, it's been fun for me. Like, literally last week, I did 6 ab workouts in a row and I couldn't do a single sit-up afterwards. So I'm like in this creation mode of all these new workouts that are coming through. We're going to have core workouts, stretching workouts, HIIT workouts, strength workouts, and we're laying it all out. So if you're one of our members, especially if you're a lifetime member or anyone paying on an ongoing subscription, you'll have immediate access to that when it's rolled out. That's cool. 2, there are really cool ways to actually hang out with our team in person. Like, we are doing all sorts of cool stuff. In about a week and a half, we're going to the country of Belize to build a house for a wonderful family. So that's cool. We have a bunch of retreats and experiences. I think they're full for Fit Father. Our Sedona retreat is full. But like, you have the opportunity to hang out with us in person. I'm dropping this in chat now for Fit Fathers. Check this out. We are doing a new experience we've never done before in Northern California called the Strength Farm, where Northern California, we're going to this training facility to meet this really legendary man named Mick Dodge, who has a unique approach to training and longevity. And we're going to work out for 3 days. You get to live with me. We get to eat, train, private chefs. So if you actually want to come like hang out with me and do a weekend of strength training and connecting, Eric, no more peak 11. We're going to mix peak 11 in like occasionally, but yeah, you're right. We're kind of peak 11. We're kind of killing a little bit, but I want to say, check out that Strength Farm link. If you're interested in hanging out with me, you get to train in person with me. We're going to be training every single day. We'll do some cold exposure, some hikes in nature, private chefs, all the stuff. Like, check that out. That's really, really good. In terms of, there was a couple more questions I'll popcorn through because people are asking great questions. Thoughts on specific kinds of fats. I keep ghee. I think ghee is good. Lard is good. Olive oil good. Coconut oil is good. All of that's great. Yes. Everyone, cold food in the summer, hot food in the winter. So that's a cool concept, right? I mean, Western medicine has been revolutionary for us, but there's a lot of these concepts in Eastern medicine, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. And the fundamental premise of all of those medicines is basically that you want to balance the body. When things are too hot, you add cold. When things are too cold, you add hot. It's the idea of the yin yang. So what this person who said Steady Ghost was mentioning, he met a guy in his 90s. He says he eats cold food in the summer, hot food in the winter. Well, what is cold food? Cold food is typically food that has higher water content. Watermelons grow in the summertime, and they're considered cooling, if you will. Like, this is why we want broths and hotter things like this in the wintertime. So I believe there's fundamentally something to that. Take that for what it's worth. Do I believe protein powders are okay, even if they have certain chemicals in them? Certain protein powders are phenomenal. Certain protein powders are trash. You got to get a company that produces really good protein, does third-party testing, uses the highest quality ingredients. Our products match that, and there's also a bunch of other great brands that do. If your protein powder has artificial sweeteners in them and a bunch of weird colorings, you don't want that. And they should be able to provide third-party testing for heavy metals and pesticides and all of that stuff too. Yeah, so I really enjoy this. We're like right up at the 60-minute mark. If I missed your question, I'm going to hang out here for a couple more minutes. So feel free to pop that down there. And I just want to say, thank you for being connected with me and my team during this journey. We've been doing Fit Father and Fit Mother for 10 years now. And I'm kind of having a revival, if you will, in my career, in my enthusiasm for this. And it's kind of coinciding with my spiritual practices and realizing that we are all here to support one another and connect. So me doing more of these live calls to spend time with you, us hosting more events where you can meet us in person, the community-based workouts, this is what we're leaning into. So if you're resonating with me and us, come hang out. Let's have the joy of doing this all together. A lot more live calls. And if you enjoy this, start writing into my team and giving me calls to give me questions so I can do on these calls. Also, if you're enjoying our YouTube channels, we have hired 2 new video editors, and we're going to be doing way more cool videos. We're going to be taking things to the next level the rest of this year. So we're investing in this company and community. We're doing such great things. Thank you guys. I appreciate all your love and support. I hope you can feel that transmission right back from me. This community is so nourishing for me, and I just love being connected with you. So I'll hang out for a few more minutes. Enjoy your weekend, the rest of your day. It is my birthday next week, July 4th. I'm going to be in Hawaii with my daughter, and I'm so excited to literally take a vacation, read some books. I'm going to go a scuba diving trip, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, just want to share that. And thank you all for being here today. I'm going to hang out probably for 2 more minutes. Today's your birthday. Happy birthday, Hail to the Chief. That's awesome. That's so cool. I think the more we can celebrate each other in life, the better life is. It's about connection. It's about connection. And this is why, again, if you don't have a meditation practice in your life right now or a spiritual practice, it will bring you so much peace and joy and connection that will feed into all this stuff that we're talking about. That's good. Stimulants for appetite suppression. Daniel, go on our store and check out Burn. Burn is a formula that I created for appetite suppression, natural metabolism enhancers without dangerous stuff. It has caffeine, ginger, cayenne, green tea, and some other things in there. You can take 1 or 2 capsules of Burn, and you will have basically a nice gentle appetite suppression. And we actually balance out the caffeine with L-theanine too. So Burn is my suggestion for you. That'd be really good. Awesome questions today, team. So good. I enjoyed this thoroughly. And for anyone who's here on the replay, thanks. We'll continue to mail out when we do these. I'm thinking frequency. I'll try to do one in about two weeks or so to come back on. CBD oil, will that help with sleep? The type of CBD is actually not CBD. It'd be CBG or CBN. And some people find it's helpful for sleep. But CBG or CBN, these are still cannabinoids. They're just not the CBD version of the cannabinoid, CBG, CBN. Trustworthy company for getting berberine. Supplement companies that I like, besides the stuff that we manufacture, but we don't carry berberine, would be like Thorne or Pure Encapsulations or Transparent Labs or Now Foods. Those are all good brands. You're welcome. Thank you all. Kevin Buckingham, happy birthday, 63 years young. So good. I appreciate all you guys for being here. Thank you so much. I'm going to hang up at the 5 mark. So we're going to hang out for 1.5 minutes, and then I'll end the stream. And this will live on the YouTube channel, so you can come back and visit this anytime. And yes. Is there a sweetener? Can artificial sweeteners or sweeteners be overdone? I think they can. Part of the sweetener aspect is, even if it doesn't affect your glucose, we're still giving ourselves the sensation of constant sweet taste. And something they actually find from Ayurvedic medicine, which is that ancient Indian medicine, is they try in healthy meals to balance the different taste profiles. So a really flavorful dish has some sweet, but it also has a little bit of spicy. It has a little umami. It's like a balanced taste profile. There's something to that, right? Because like our hypoglossal nerve that kind of goes into our tongue and helps with taste sensation is responding dynamically to the kind of like taste that's coming in, and our body is predicting what's going to happen from that. Like, so if sweet stuff comes in, our body actually gets ready to brace for like incoming sugar. When bitter stuff comes in, our liver starts to actually secrete some bile because it's like fats and stuff are coming in. So I do think there's a problem if you use too much sugar or too much sweeteners all the time. I keep stevia in the house. Some people are keen on allulose. That can be good too. Monk fruit is fine. And we all taste these slightly differently. So you got to find one that works well for you. Any stevia options for my tea? Yeah, drink tea, add a little stevia. That's fine. Cool. Well, thank you all. 5 seconds. I'm going to be hanging up. I wish you a beautiful rest of the week, and I'll talk to you in a few weeks. And we'll also, team, before we do, throw some links into our program. If there's anyone here who is not on Fit Father or Fit Mother Project and you like this, like our members can probably comment here in the chat too. Like, our programs are so freaking good. And this is just like, information's one thing, but getting in the program and getting the community is so good. Here's the link to the Fit Father program to check it out. I'll put the Fit Mother one in there as well. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. I had a blast. So here's the Fit Mother link, and then we'll end this stream. I will see you guys very soon. Bye, Mohammed. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the great question. Bye, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Check those links in the chat.